Section 40 of the Wetlands Protection Act, Town of Walpole Wetlands Protection Bylaw. Notice is hereby given the intent of David Wakefield for proposed construction of a residential subdivision, Nichols Pond Lane, with road, drainage, utilities, and grading, located at A2 East Street. Plans on file at the Conservation Commission office. Public hearing on the above matter would be held at Walpole Town Hall, 135 School Street, September 27th, beginning at 7:15 p.m. All interested persons requested to be present. Hearing has been opened and continued. We have something new. This is from engineering.
Yes.
From the town engineer regarding drainage.
I have a copy.
You have it, good. It is strongly recommended that the underground leaching system be in a single lot so that maintenance responsibility is clear. Full-size sub-watershed plans should be provided to this department. The above noted memo indicates they are provided with that memo, but they weren't. Developer's engineer shall confirm that the underground retention systems do not require street piping be full or partially full of water in order to force recharge to occur. The invert of the overflow pipe out should not be higher than the street piping in, or the street piping will surcharge. Developer's engineer response to this statement should be indicated on the plans. Developer's engineer should confirm that the subdivision runoff calcs do not depend on the individual home roof recharge system, since the planning board does not control how each home is built. Applicant's engineer should specify what type of professional should prepare and submit the inspection forms. If the detention basin is to be a dry basin, this should be so stated on the plans. It is requested that the developer's engineer meet with this department to go over the drain calcs and methodology, and additional comments may be forthcoming once the meeting has taken place and once the plans requested in number 4 above have been provided. Leaching system 1 should not interfere with the placement of the granite bound shown at the intersections of lot 4 and 5. Detention basin is labeled number 3 on the plan view and number 1 on the profile view. These should be corrected so the designations match. You do have a copy. Good. Thank you. Let's see if there's the Board of Health. Board of Health is December 5, 2017 meeting voted unanimously to reiterate comments made at the September 5, 2017 meeting that they strongly oppose new construction within the 100-foot buffer zone, and note that 5 of the 13 houses on the plan fit that definition, and would urge that the scope of the project be scaled back to address that concern. I guess that's it. Okay, representing the applicant.
Rob Truax, the owner of Engineering Consultants. So, since our last meeting, we did make a revision to the plan to try and address most of Margaret Walker's comments and to address some of the comments from going along with the planning board as well. And just to point some of those out quickly, the biggest change was the actual cul-de-sac itself was reduced by 46 feet in length. We pulled it back to provide some buffering to this neighbor's house. Not that that's a conservation thing. We revised the wetland line up in the area of lot 4. We pulled it out to the fence, as was discussed in the field with Landis and Joyce Hastings of our office. And by doing that, we had to slide this little drainage basin closer to East Street to accommodate the 25-foot no disturb buffer. So we're still maintaining that in that area. We were able to, on lot 4 and 5, we put the recharge system solely on lot 5 as requested. What I did on lot 7 and 8, I really couldn't configure it in the front yard on lot 8 because of the utilities that go through, but what I did was I put into a 4-chamber, 4 rows instead of 3, and I divided it half and half. 2 of the rows on one lot, 2 of the rows on the other, to kind of give it some ability to split it up, so to speak. And that's what I did on that one up at the end. Other than that, you know, we do have her comments here that she wrote to, that these comments address this plan. These are new comments based on this revision, just so you know. So I don't expect to close the hearing tonight. We have these comments. We also still have been in front of the planning board. We continuing with the planning board. We have a meeting on January 4th. So we're not looking to try and close this evening. We still have a ways to go with the other boards. So, and I'd like to wrap up these last remaining comments with Margaret, get those out of the way, clean that up. I don't see anything, you know, concrete here that's a problem. We do, I know she makes the comment about the roof runoff. We do put roof runoff into recharge systems. It's one of the things in the stormwater standards that they actually promote, because it's clean water. We can put it right back in the ground. We don't have to treat it. So, I mean, we do that on every project. I know she makes a comment about it. Some towns make comments like who maintains that, who oversees it, who makes sure it gets put in, and all that. There is no mechanism that I know of from a legal standpoint, but it goes on every project we do. You know, the planning board puts it in their conditions of approval. I've only seen one project that didn't get built. They didn't put them in, and they actually wouldn't give them the acceptance of the road. They went back and put them in the lots. So it does happen. It does get enforced. That wasn't in this town. This was in another community. So with that, you guys have any questions on this revised set of plans?
Landis?
So Rob, you haven't had a sit down to review the calcs as
No,
as
I'll do
requested?
that with her. Yeah, we haven't done that. We've talked about it. We didn't sit in her office, actually.
Okay, I mean, I think you addressed the concerns that we had the last time, the wetlands area and the, yeah, we prefer the stormwater management systems to be on one lot, so it's clear who's maintaining it. The one that you said kind of is half on one lot and half on the other lot, are there two cleaning ports, one on
There's
one side,
4.
one on the other,
There's
or two on each, or?
The way the cleaning ports work is there's one at the beginning of each row and at the end. So there'd be 4 ports on that system, cleaning ports.
So
I
it's
could
kind
split it
of
up more. I could put a
divided
little
between the
divider
two.
it. I could throw a couple feet between them, make it like 2 separate systems with just a feeder pipe. I mean, I could do that.
Right, I mean, the issue is if it needs to be cleaned, who cleans it? And it's easier to go to one person and say, you have to clean this than
To go to 2.
depending on how the neighbors get along or whatever, you know. So if it's possible to make it so one
Yeah.
side is
I'd like the town to
accessed
take
by
it and
one
accept
side.
it.
And the other side is cleaned by the other neighbor, that's would help address my concern of who to go for what.
I'll review it again with her and
Okay.
see if there's some other, something else. Maybe I'm thinking, when I did it that way, the idea was to put the lines down the middle. Maybe, and then I did think about where I could push them apart, make them like 2 separate little systems, so they're responsible for them themselves. It only takes about a foot or 2 in between them. I'm comfortable with that.
Whatever's easiest so that they're maintained and it's clear who's maintaining them.
Yeah.
Is the issue. And then as far as the roof drains, right, so these lots will require individual filings, the ones on towards the wetlands, I think, most of them, of some kind of requested determination or.
I would
notice
think,
of
yeah, all
intent.
the ones on the left-hand side.
Right, so we would expect details of the infiltration systems.
Right, which
On
I
the-
have them
on
on
the
the
plans.
subdivision plans, but they would be reiterated on the individual lot plans. Correct.
That's it.
Okay. Emilio?
No questions.
Jim?
Nothing.
Roger?
Not at this time.
Betsy?
No.
Al?
Well, one of the things
The plan I'm looking at here isn't the same as the plan that you've got there. Just the most obvious, the shape of the building here, this is a rectangle, this is a rectangle, and up there you've got a different shape building. Just to be the most obvious.
Well, that's the exact same plan here.
Well, then why is the orange shape different up there than it is here?
What's different? This one here? That's a rectangle.
Well,
That's the house.
okay, it isn't even on here.
Oh, that's this house right here. That's this
That
one. I think you,
This
yeah,
is
you're
the
reading this,
drainage.
that's this house. This is the
Yeah.
drainage.
Okay,
drainage.
drainage.
Yeah, no, it's exactly the same.
I'm gonna split up.
They're just reduced.
Okay.
A little harder to read.
Okay.
If he didn't take the big plan, you
I
go,
would unfurl this one.
Yeah, no, that's okay.
yeah, no, it's the same. I don't usually give you guys reduced plans. That was,
Yeah.
It's the problem with them.
well, I submitted
It's
to the
tough
wrong
to
board.
Anything else, Al?
Well, I agree with what Landis was saying about having the recharge area
Signature page.
on the lot line.
Yeah, it's like an order of conditions.
The question is, who's gonna be responsible for cleaning it? If these two people don't get along, then it isn't gonna get done.
I think our suggestion would be that you split it.
I'm gonna try and
Yeah.
split it.
Make two
Not
separate
try-
ones?
Not try it, do it.
Yeah, we can split it. I don't see a problem with that.
And make it enough
Yeah, we'll put
split
a,
on
yeah.
each, so that you got
We'll
some
header pipe
definite
it off,
room
we'll
on
put a
each.
header pipe at the front so it feeds both systems evenly and we'll just split it.
The inlet is on one property.
But there'll be a head, we'll connect it with a header pipe at the end. All the chambers will connect to one pipe. They'll come out to one header and then it'll go to that outlet structure. So they'll all feed together.
You need access to that distribution pipe
Mhm.
from each side, then so each property has access to it, to the
Yeah.
pipe.
Yeah, they'll be able to get access to it. There'll be cleanouts on it.
Yeah, you got cleanouts on the recharge system, but I'm talking about
Oh,
the
on the pipe.
distribution pipe, so that each homeowner has access to that pipe to get, if the problem's in the pipe, they have access to that, each one.
So you don't think it would be safe to just let them have the rights to go on the other easement?
No.
No,
Well,
because
make
they're
it-
liable
make
to put
it
a fence
separate.
on the
Alright.
property
I'll
line.
just put a second manhole in then.
Yeah, just make it so that each one is independent.
I'll put it so they have the ability to get to the pipe.
Yeah,
That's easy. I just put another manhole.
yeah, I mean, that's,
Simple.
yeah, instead of trying to combine this stuff.
Yep.
just
No,
avoid a
that's fine.
Future problem.
That's easy.
Make it so that each one is responsible for their own, or their section of that,
Okay.
okay?
Rob, is the reason it's not an open swale, is it aesthetics or just like,
With this,
yeah,
I mean like an open basin.
a basin, yeah, just,
Yeah, because
Where
of
it
the
is.
placement, where it is, it would be a hole, and
Yeah.
by the time you grade it, you're into the front yards because you got to put the side slopes in. It's just
right,
it's more compact under the ground, and
Mhm.
because the soils are so good, it allows you to go underground with a smaller system.
yeah,
You know, if I had room like, I probably could have looked at something back here, but
it's
Yeah.
far, yeah,
when you're in the buffer, and
right, okay, just.
when I have good soils like that, I just try to put it all on the ground.
Mhm.
It's just cleaner, it's easier.
Right,
From an aesthetic standpoint, it's better.
right,
And they work well. I mean, I've put some in 25 years ago and they're still working.
right,
You know, they're all over Norfolk, town of Norfolk. We used to do them all the time.
mhm,
We still do.
yeah,
Okay. Anyone in the audience have any questions or comments? Please identify yourself for the record. Okay, so you want to continue this till when? The next meeting is January,
We have the 10th and the 24th. 24th? 24th.
okay. You have a quorum then?
Where you leaving?
Yeah.
When you leaving?
I'll be here the 10th.
You leave after that?
Well, does everyone else expect to be here on the 24th?
Yes. I'll be away on the 10th.
Okay.
And we should be fine. Everyone else.
Everyone else was
Right.
that the first hearing?
This is, what was the
Second
first?
hearing.
Oh, this is the second hearing.
Just a second.
Um,
First one was September 27th.
And then Jack, when are you getting back?
I'll be here for the last meeting in March. Well, if you have enough, if everybody was here for the 27th.
I'm not sure.
You guys all sit on this? I think you did.
I think so. I was here. I was here.
Okay. You can always look at it on TV. if
Okay.
that's,
All right, so we have the January 24th.
So, continue till 7 PM on the January 24th. All right with you? 7 o'clock. Someone to make that a motion?
So move.
Second.
Any further discussion? All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed, abstained. 600.
You want to keep that?
No.
Okay.
You ready?
Yeah.
Town of Walpole amendment to the order of conditions, the Conservation Commission. In accordance with Massachusetts General Laws, Chapter 131, Section 40 of the Wetlands Protection Act, Chapter 561, Division 2, Walpole Wetlands Protection Bylaw, notice hereby given the intent of Wall Street Development Corp. to request an amendment to the order of conditions located off Burns Ave. Plans may be reviewed at the Conservation Commission Office, Room 212. Public hearing, the above matter will be held in Walpole Town Hall, 135 School Street, December 13th, 2017, beginning 7:15 PM. All interested persons request to be present. Time is now 7:19. Let's see, we got some board comments. It's from the town engineer. Reference this amendment. It is requested that the applicant provide this department with a full-size plans for the current and any future submissions on this project. The commission approves the temporary access to Union Street. It is requested developers' traffic engineers be required to opine on and recommend site-specific safety signage for Union Street to warn motorists that there are construction vehicles exiting and entering. These signs be recommended for installation on public property, that is Union Street itself. Any requisite permission from the selectmen must be obtained by the applicant. Plans that show both the existing contours and the proposed contours for the proposed truck route to Union Street should be provided for review. Proposed contours for the trucking route are not existing contours, then it is recommended that the commission reevaluate the proposed work in the floodplain. Even in the short term, the placement of additional fill which changes the grading can affect the flood storage capacity of the area. It is recommended that if the commission allows a temporary construction access, there be appropriate gating and signage which will prohibit unauthorized or after-hours access through the construction roadway. If the temporary construction access is allowed, it is recommended that grading and construction details be shown on a plan. Recommended that the commission determine and memorialize in writing the time limits on the temporary construction access route. It's from the Board of Health at its December 5 meeting. Voted that they have no specific concerns at this time regarding the amendment request to the order of conditions Union Square Village. The board does, however, reiterate previous comments made strongly opposing construction within the 100-foot buffer zone. It's from the Board of Appeals, does not have any comment at this time on the above referenced matter due to the applicant currently being before the zoning board for the same project. Let's see. This parcel has an outstanding bill with the finance department. You aware of that?
I think that's been taken care of.
Yeah, okay, this is dated November 28th. Have we got an update? Should check that. I don't know what our there are also outstanding balances on other properties. I think our position is with respect to the property in front of us. Isn't that our approach on that? Okay. Can we check with the finance department and see if that's been squared away? Okay. You want this read? This letter?
Well, I think you can make note of it and see if I believe he's in the audience, if he wants to discuss it, or if you want to just acknowledge that it's in the record.
Well, we're not gonna read it?
Up to, yeah.
I would think we would.
Whatever you want to do. I know that the person who wrote the email is in the audience, so I don't know if he wants to discuss the points or if Jack should read.
I think he should read it.
What's the point of reading it?
Because we read everything else.
For the public record.
Yeah, but that person's here to speak, where Maggie isn't here
Why
to
don't
talk.
we ask him? Mr. Conroy, would you like this read into the record or just reference it and you will plan to address it?
That's fine.
Pardon?
I thought I might have answers, so if you want to just read it in, and if you got answers, that'd be fine.
So you'd like it to be read into the record?
Yeah, and, hopefully there's some answers from my questions, that's all.
Okay. This is from Mr. Conroy, Jack Conroy. Looking for a date, December 8th. And in anticipation of the conservation hearing on March 13th on a request to modify Union Square, I ask that you review this information. Major concern we have is the dump materials found in the test pits showing an average depth of 4 feet plus. This black slag material has yet to be tested for chemicals to find out exactly what it is. All the abutters are concerned over what exactly this material is. The other concerns are the trash material found, such as metals, etc. We understand that Wall Street indicated to you that they would be removing all this black slag material and replacing it with proper fill. Wall Street at the zoning board hearing said that this material is good material and will be staying, and only the metals would be taken out. From a wetland standpoint, leaving this material in with no chemical testing that will be disturbed during construction will expose the brook to hazardous conditions. From a stormwater management point of view, this black slag material being left in place creates an impervious barrier that will not allow runoff to drain back into the ground. The only way for the stormwater management design to work is to remove this impervious material. As it stands now, Wall Street has no plans to remove and replace it. In regards to the allowing the sewer and water connection to go through wetlands/brook area makes no sense from a conservation standpoint, especially with another access, that being Burns Avenue. The only reason this was proposed to go to Union Street was simply a cost factor. Burns presently has both water and sewer with upgrades needed. To allow a sewer pipe to go next to a brook plus in the FEMA map floodplain seems to go against good conservation measures. The other item that surprised me was that an open cut was allowed instead of pipe jacking or tunneling per your decision at Ross Commons. A break in the sewer line in this area would be tragic, as the ability to access the brook area with the town's equipment and repair would be impossible due to the muddy material. Crane mats, wood sheeting, etc. would be needed, similar to stabilize the area. A break in the sewer line would also go undetected, as the raw sewage would leak into the brook and be carried away. I raise this point as it is a reality to what happened in Norwood years ago. Former DPW Director Joe Welch told me that they had a water leak leaking 2 million gallons a day that went undetected for years until they were in the midst of a town-wide leak detection program. What they found was that the main supply line running parallel with Hawes Brook in south of Norwood next to the pool had a mammoth leak leaking into the brook, thus going unnoticed. From a hazardous standpoint, MWRA water was not a threat, but had this been sewerage, it would have been devastating. There are no monitors to detect sewer flow, thus no ability to detect a leak. Leak detection on sewer is simple. Quotes, smell. And smell in running brook water is almost non-existent. The other issue of a sewer leak into a brook is that the smell or solids would be carried away downstream, giving no way to pinpoint a leak. Finally, I would like to add is that this sewer is on private property and that the town would not have a legal right or access to repair. I would not want to rely on a condo association to have the knowledge, ability, or money to mobilize quickly to stop this conservation disaster. Sure, we could sue, but the damage was done. What I have included is Wall Street Union Square test pit report and an example of a soils management report for a residential development in Boston of a similar square foot area. My point in all of this is that the test pit submission by Wall Street is merely exploratory, used by developers to see what they are up against. The soils management report is the actual vehicle in which the site is accessed, tested, evaluated. Specific guidelines are set forth for soil removal. Soils management plan must be developed and submitted for each board's review and approval prior to granting approval. Biggest concern that should be had by all is that this was a former dump site for bird. Wall Street agrees on the dump, and without proper chemical testing of the material, disturbance without having all the protective requirements in place could be a disaster in the making. I ask that careful consideration by your board is taken over this issue and that proper steps are in place to protect the residents. Thank you. Okay. That's it. So, representing the applicant.
Is it my turn?
Yes.
Lou Petrosi, representing Wall Street Development Corp. And the reason we're here tonight is to try and address a couple of concerns that have been raised during the appeals, the Board of Appeals hearing process, and try to provide some solutions to problems that have, or concerns that have been raised during the hearing process. The first issue that has come up that's concerning some of the neighbors down on the Brook Lane side of the property, which I believe is the, what do I say, it's the northeasterly or southeasterly side. Anyways, the concern has been that with the amount of tree clearing that's going to take place there and the amount of restoration that's going to take place in those areas, that they may have an impact visually because of they're losing a treed, vegetated area, and they would like to have some screening installed to sort of supplement what we've taken down. So what we've proposed is to create a sort of a bermed area along the property line and replace what we've taken down with 6 to 8 foot evergreen type plantings that would be on a berm that would create a landscape buffer, if you will, so that visually, from looking in direction into the site, that you'd have you wouldn't be looking directly at the homes. And that's our first request, that because we didn't ask for it the first time, we wanted to come back and ask if we could do that. Given the fact that we are also doing plantings along this 25-foot buffer, which we're restoring with plantings, but the plants species that are going in this area are not, they're more of the wetland variety, red maple, blueberries, other stuff. And along the berm, along this property line, we'd like it to be more of a evergreen type of buffer for those neighbors. And that's the first issue that's come up that was of concern to some of the neighbors. Second issue that came up during the process of the public hearings is that of traffic, construction traffic on Burns Ave. As you know, Burns Ave is a short dead-end street, approximately 600 feet long. We thought with the opportunity that, because we have an area that's being disturbed out to Union Street to install the utilities, that we'd have an opportunity to provide for some mitigation there by having it used as a construction access temporarily during the project, or part of the time that the project is being built. And for that purpose, we would like the commission to give us some consideration for that. This is submitted a blown-up detailed plan of the area that we're talking about. What's highlighted in blue here, or purple, is the water line that is going in closest to the brook in this particular location, and the sewer line is on the opposite side of that 20-foot spacing. We would be taking, and as already permitted by the commission, the erosion control is set to go down a 20-foot strip. We'd be installing a construction chain link fence along the entire perimeter with a gate, as suggested by Maggie, and the construction drive would actually be about 16 feet wide, which is 4 feet narrower than what is permitted for disturbance at the present time. You'll notice that, and this is the closest point where the access is to the brook. It's probably 6 feet away. And these areas here on either side, on this part, it's almost 19 feet from the property line, which again would probably be about 22 feet from the brook itself. We've incorporated some other measures that were in my memorandum. I've discussed how the construction access will be installed. There's no anticipation of runoff that would enter or be sloped towards the brook. We're going to slope everything away from the brook. The drainage will slope into the site, and the actual drive itself will be a crushed gravel, stone gravel way, which will allow for infiltration. And I think Landis had brought up an issue about snow plowing. If it does snow, we will be removing the snow from this area completely and moving it into the inner part of the site, so there'd be no plowing of snow or anything like that that would narrow the construction access any further than that. So those are my initial comments.
Okay.
I have with me Rob Truex, as a site engineer, and Paul McManus, who was here during the hearing process. They're here to answer any questions that you may have regarding the proposal, either one, the trees or the construction access.
Landis? Just for those in the audience, we'll go through the board with any questions or comments, and we'll open it up to anyone in the audience who may want to make a comment or question. And we ask that you identify yourself for the record and keep your comments pertinent to conservation. Go ahead, Landis.
Just first of all, I want to bring to the attention of the commission that the plans that are the more detailed plans came in yesterday, so they weren't given to Maggie or anyone else. So they actually incorporate some of the comments that they had received from Maggie's letter and from me as well. So first, I'm going to state all my concerns, and then you can address them. First, as far as the replanting plan, when the commission issued order of conditions originally, part of that area was the riverfront restoration area, which I don't think is even shown on the revised supplement C plan at all. The restoration of the riverfront area, the degraded area was going to be cleared out, and then the area was going to be restored, and it's not even shown on the plan anymore. Instead, there's proposed berm and white pines and Norway maples there. So in the order of conditions, plan number 73, plan sub C was supposed to be revised, and the comments from Oxbow regarding restoration of that area were going to be put on the plan and address the special conditions 68, 69, 70, 71, and 72, 79, which all have to do with some revisions that we want to the plan and the restoration of the riverfront area. So I'd like that addressed. And then as far as the entrance way, again, I just want to remind the commission that when they reviewed this plan and reviewed that area, we very specifically spoke about the additional work that was happening in the riverfront area, that was happening in the buffer zone, the 25-foot no alteration area, and the floodplain, and that we were concerned that that work was going to happen, and it was going to be temporary in nature, and it was because the water in the sewer was going to be brought in. The applicant said it was beyond the economic feasibility of the project for it to come down Burns Ave. Even though that was an alternative, the commission said, okay, the water and sewer can come in off of Union Street, and it was presented as being, the trench was dug, the pipe was laid, it was backfill, we're in and out, really temporary, and then we will restore it. So what's being presented here tonight is more than that. So that area will be used as a construction entrance and for a longer period of time, a base so trucks can drive in and out. I am concerned about the drainage, and I am concerned about the snow, even though it was addressed, but I think because there's an alternative, that the commission should look that there's an alternative, and the only reason that that area was approved for utilities is because there supposedly wasn't an alternative. So I think that needs to be addressed. And then the commission should look at if the applicant has adequately addressed that there will be no more additional impacts to that area, how long it's going to be open, and how it would be restored afterwards. But mainly, it's additional work within the resource areas that was allowed by the commission because there was no other alternatives bringing in the utilities. And there seems to be an alternative as a construction access.
Okay. Video?
Yeah, I agree, and I wouldn't be in favor of using this as a construction entrance, given the fact that there is an alternative to entering the site that's perfectly viable. So I would agree with that, with Landis's assessment of that.
Anything else?
No.
Jim?
What's the alternative, Landis?
Coming in Burns Ave.
So could we see that plan showing Burns Ave?
I don't think anyone is saying that we don't have access to the site. We're trying to address a concern to mitigate traffic from being only in one location. So, to avoid traffic on Burns Ave where there are 8 or 10, 12 homes, this would be an easier route out, or have a one-way in or one-way out kind of situation, so.
No, but it's not clear to me why you're saying it's easier.
Nope, I just want you to understand, nobody's asked us to do this.
Right.
It's not a requirement, nobody's required us to do it. We heard a concern at the public hearing. We thought we'd approach the commission to see whether or not they would assist in sort of this mitigation approach. It's really, I think, more for the homeowners on Burns Avenue, for give them some relief rather than, it's not gonna make a difference to us either way.
Okay, so the only reason you're proposing this is to take into account concerns
Correct.
of homeowners on Burns Ave? You're
That's-
agnostic as to which
Doesn't-
access way you use?
Nobody's made doesn't matter to us which way we come in.
Okay.
It's just, but we thought it was a good idea to try and help people on Burns Ave to get less traffic during the construction process than more traffic. That's all.
Okay, I don't have
All it
anything
is,
else.
it's there are regulations for certain things, and then there's common sense things that to take into consideration. So I'm not gonna try and argue our point because it's just practical. It's a practical situation more than anything else.
Jim, anything else?
Yeah, I don't have anything
Okay.
else then.
Roger?
Well, I'm very concerned about the Pickerel Brook and the proximity this road is going to be, or this driveway or access road is going to be. And we've heard nothing about how it's going to be restored after we're done, and keep it from becoming an escape way or a passageway or another way of going in and out
Well,
afterwards.
I think the original, when we had the original discussion, there was a discussion of how it's going to be restored. So I think that's already taken into account, that it will be restored as a landscaped area, grassed over. But I think at the same time, that if you heard from the comments from Mr. Conroy, at some point, you know, the town will have an easement over this property, and they will have to have, it's suitable for access to, in the event of an emergency or a repair or a clean out or some sort of thing. So it has to be put in place to both restore it from an environmental standpoint, but yet stable enough for a vehicle to get in there to, in the event of service.
But how are you going to keep the people from using it as a second driveway?
Well, we're going to probably have to do something in terms of to discourage by blocking it here at Union Street or blocking it on the cul-de-sac, or there are various ways to do that if we have to put some sort of gate or shrubbery or temporary structure, boulders or that kind of thing. But things that can be moved by a piece of equipment easy enough to, if there was an emergency of some sort, that they could get in there.
Yeah, it's also very disturbing when I hear about the contamination or potential contamination in the lot.
Where have you heard that?
Hmm?
Where have you heard that?
Well, there's not going to be any additional tests being made.
Well, I submitted a report, and I've believe in the report, the consultant stated that based on their testing, there is no hazardous material on the site. So you can't take a professional who did testing and studied on the lot and then try to change it around to say you're concerned about contamination. We provided a report, and the report stands as it is.
Has there been any testing done on the proposed driveway?
Which
Or
one?
with access road?
This way here?
Yeah.
No, there hasn't been any testing done in that area, because when we found the area that was, there was an area where we reached where there wasn't any further evidence of historical fill being placed in that area. So we don't believe that beyond where we have the cul-de-sac now, that there's any historical fill that's been placed in that area. That's, we believe, is existing natural ground.
Was that ever used as a driveway to drive in dump trucks?
I have no idea. I mean, it's been there, this plan has been in place since 1950 something. I don't know what it was used for, or if it was used at any point in the past, except for what the town used to install their culvert there several years ago. They installed a drainage culvert, and they have a drainage easement already in that area right now. So they already have, the town already has permission to service this area right here at the beginning of the outlet in the event of, right now that's a culvert that could be blocked by leaves or trees or whatever. They have to get in there with equipment now. They already have an easement there. All we're talking about is whether or not there'd be an easement going the rest of the way in case of a similar type of situation where they'd have to get in and service the utilities.
Well, I know the area.
Okay.
Anything else, Roger?
Well, I'm concerned about this whole potential pollution or disruption of Pickerel Brook and the wetlands, and let it be.
Okay. Betsy?
This commission just has a very limited purview, and it's about wetlands, it's about a little brook that's going through, it's about our 25-foot buffer.
Mm-hmm.
And it was quite a discussion just to get the sewer and water through there. Whether we made the right decision on that, I don't know, but that was a decision we made, and it was not an easy one. The idea of having a construction entrance for some period of time, far longer than just days, going across the 25-foot buffer right next to the brook, it is not something that I would be in favor of. And the argument about traffic, is not the purview of this commission. And in fact, if any member of the audience said, I'd like to talk about the fire trucks turning around, or I'd like to talk about the traffic, or we'd say, that's not our jurisdiction, take that to a different board. So we're just here to protect the wetlands, so I am not in favor of putting a construction entrance that
Okay.
close to the wetlands and across the buffer. And the second thing I wanted to say is, I'm glad Mr. Conroy's here, because maybe he'll say something in addition to what he already wrote. Because I would like rectified what was said about the fill on the land to one board, perhaps differently to what was said to this commission. So I'd like that to be sorted out a little bit.
Well, I don't think he'd be the person to sort it out. We'd be the people to sort it out. What we have said at the public hearing with the Board of Appeals is that none of this material is going to be trucked off-site as he portrayed it to be. We will be taking the material and reprocessing it on-site. What perhaps Mr. Conroy was mistaken in hearing, that the area that is within the jurisdiction of the commission that we've talked about restoring and pulling out that material and replacing it with good natural material, that's what we're committing to this commission, that we will be doing that. But that doesn't mean that the material that we pull out of there won't be used somewhere else on site, either by reprocessing, crushing. As you may recall, when you walk the site, there's a lot of concrete, there's a lot of bricks and building material type stuff that's on the site. All of that material is going to be reprocessed on site, but it's going to not remain in the area that the commission was the most concerned about, where we're going to be putting the stormwater management and restoring the 25-foot buffer with new vegetation and so on. So there's kind of miscommunication in terms of what is being heard and what was said.
Okay, that's a real fine point, because I don't recall, but maybe we have to go and study the minutes or the tapes or something, feeling a lack of concern about the entire site. I mean, yes, of course, we're concerned about the parts that are closest to our resource areas, but I don't recall feeling a lack of concern about the huge amount of fill that's just all through the site.
Well, we submitted the report that you asked for, and I believe the report states what was found and what regulatory processes will be needed if certain things are found. So we made a commitment to the commission, and we're going to keep our commitment to the commission as far as cleaning the site up and cleaning the area up that is the most closest to the wetland and where the stormwater management facilities are going. That's what we committed to.
Anything else, Betsy?
Could I offer just one thought here? Is it
Go ahead.
possible? It seems to me the applicant is not pushing this proposal. They're not. The applicant doesn't want it for the applicant. The applicant is only offering it as a possibility, or to mitigate this traffic concerns to people who live on Burns Avenue. I expect everybody on this commission is not in favor of that alternative. Do we need to go any further here?
It's a public hearing, which means we need to have, if people have come to hear their comment. And there are two issues here. One is the vegetation, which, if there was a north arrow on there, you could say where it is, but that's...
Right, I understand that, but I'm talking about the
There
access.
are two issues, so we need to hear what comments are. And maybe there perhaps would be a strong push that we give this a positive consideration. So I think we should hear from those who in the audience if they have any comments. So, okay?
Okay.
Okay. Al, any,
I think everybody will recall that when the proposal for the water and sewer line through this narrow strip out to Union Street was proposed, there was some opposition, but the agreement was that they would do the water and the sewer concurrently and as quickly as possible, and then restore the site. So that as soon as the pipes were installed, the site would be restored and replanted back to a natural condition. That sort of precludes this business of making it into a roadway and all the complications that come about by using it as a roadway. I understand the issues of leakage and all that, but the proposal was to put a pipe for water and a pipe for sewer, and to do it as quickly as possible, and not wait until some other things were done, and drag it out over a long period of time. So the proposal to use it as a haul road for construction vehicles, as far as I'm concerned, doesn't comply with what the agreement was at the beginning of using this strip for access for the water and sewer. So therefore, I think that's where that lies. As far as the plantings are concerned, down at the restoration area, in the last few years, because of insects and climate change, whether we want to recognize that the climate is changing or not, different species of plants not doing as well as they used to. The best example I can give at the moment is hemlocks. We used to require those as an evergreen planting, and I have half a dozen hemlocks that at the base they're 2 feet in diameter, and they're dying because of an insect. The woolly adelgid is killing them, and therefore what we plant in these places has to be different than what traditionally people planted in these places for many years. So we have to change that. And as somebody pointed out, people, after a windstorm, they all want white pines to be taken down because they're afraid of them.
Yeah.
Okay, so on that point of view, maybe as was exhibited this fall with hurricanes and storms, and we just had a storm that did some damage around here, maybe white pine is not a good alternative either. So we have to look at other things to plant there, and I guess the goal is to plant some kind of native material that will screen the view and provide habitat, and that means some of it has to be an evergreen of some kind that's native to New England.
Right.
Okay, so that's, I think that's where we're at there. I don't think there's any disagreement that that has to be done. It's a matter of people with some recent experience pick up what's going to be the next best thing to put in those places. So we have to give that a little bit of thought on plans from now on, because things are changing. And I think that's all I need to say at the moment.
Okay. I was concerned about using the white pines also for the reasons that Al mentioned. As far as the roadway goes, I have concerns about that, but right now, just open it up to the audience. If anyone has any comments, questions, please come up, use the microphone, and identify yourself for the record.
Good evening. William Yusevich, 201 Union Street. The direct abutter to the proposed sewer easement. Obviously, my main concern would be traffic. I know you don't want to hear about it, so I'll just say a little about the vegetation growth. I know if you are traveling down Union Street, if you're familiar with it, and you're going down to, say, Route 1, on my other side of the brook, on where my neighbor, the Barrows, live, it's heavily vegetated, and in the summertime, when I'm backing out of my driveway, I can't see going down towards the Pleasant Street. So I'm not sure the vegetation, if this road is going in, some of that vegetation will probably have to come down. And during the summertime, personally, vegetation around those culverts, at least 3 or 4 times during the summer, I'm out there cutting, chopping away, because when I'm backing out on my driveway, I can't see going down towards Pleasant Street. So there's a lot of vegetation around that Union Street area. So that's basically all I have to say about that.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone else?
Evening. Jack Conroy. I have property right next to it. I bought it. And I sent to the email, and I also sent it previously to the ZBA and the Board of Health. I'm in the construction business. I've dealt with this a lot. And one of the things that's been said is the stuff in there, yeah, it's on, I assume this works for TV. It's on the plan, but it hasn't been chemically analyzed. And if you look through some of that chemical analyzation on that particular project in Boston, then they start to determine what is what is what. Yeah, this is slag, but no one knows what's in the slag. One footnote on that is the zoning board did ask if it tested prior to, and it hasn't happened. So I always, rather than throwing out stones, is why wouldn't you have tested if you think it's good? One of the things that this came about, I believe, is because we were led to believe that all the stuff was coming out, and it was about 10 to 12,000 yards out and 10 to 12 coming in the truck traffic. I'll speak for myself, but I don't ever remember me saying we need another exit out there. What they were concerned about is the fact that Burns Ave wasn't being improved at all. It was just going to be stopped. We talked about sidewalks. There's no sidewalks from in front of my house all the way down, and there was no plans to do anything. So that was part of it. Now, a few things I'd like to ask. Is this 3 years proposed, temporary road? Is that
12 months.
I think it's proposed for 12 months with the comment that if additional time is desired or required, that they would come back to us and ask for an extension to that time.
Okay. Well,
Which, of course, is an issue that we would have to consider, that it would more than likely, the process would take more than 12 months.
okay, and I'm just going to speak to technical items here, not throwing what's been in the past.
On the testing, didn't we get wasn't there some testing done and we get a report?
We got a report from
CMG.
CMG.
Well, if
that
it's,
they had
I saw
done
the
some
report that just talked about, it looks like the Massachusetts declassified, but there was no chemical testing done.
Or you have seen that report?
Yeah, it's on,
Okay.
it was a submission
Okay.
to the zoning board and the planning board. Everybody got the same one, but all it is what you do is before you do a subdivision, go out and see what you got for dirt, whether you can use it or not.
Okay.
It was not a chemical analysis. And given the fact that no one's disputed, this used to be an old dump site for birds, so you never know what you're gonna get in there.
Right.
And the one thing about the road, we're all temporary in this life. So a temporary road is as temporary as you want to make it. 12 months could be 50 years. What I would be concerned about, and this is where your bailiwick is, the fact that you're going to have a temporary road that isn't up to standards, and you're right next to the river. I could see if you're going through somewhere you're not going to have it. To me, that would probably have to be even better than what you'd put something that's 200 feet away. Putting the stone down there and so on. The other thing is, and I think most of us understand, construction vehicles and construction trucks and tractors are not the most environmental friendly, meaning I would rather see cars go in and out of there because the chances are they're gonna have less leaks, less hydraulics, less of that stuff. So that's why this road, to me, would have to be something equal to what you have before. And you'd also want something, because if someone blows a hydraulic line or leaks his diesel, you know, there's nowhere to go. You don't have the structures, I think I call them vortex, is that the correct term?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, structures, there's nothing there. To me, I think you'd want, if you're gonna do that, you might as well go for it all. And I have a few more notes. If the town having the easement, that's great, but the town isn't responsible because this is a private property, so they couldn't fix the sewer. I mean, what would happen, it's happened, I've seen in the past, people cry, we can't do it, and the town comes and rescues, but still, it's a tough site to go fix on that. Now, one of the things that I want to bring up that isn't under your purview, it's kind of unique, and isn't under really anybody's. This is a private site. This is a site plan, so to speak. This is not a subdivision. This is going to be condos. And condos are going to be sold to a condo association. So there will be no bond on this at all. It's not like the planning board can go in, the bond, or this or that. So if this road never gets taken out, if none of this stuff is ever done, the town has no comeback on it. Not so much the building department, because they won't let him move in, but you guys, because he didn't move, didn't take the road out, he didn't put the trees in, he didn't do what he's supposed to. It'd be similar to what I make up in Sharon there, off of Mechanic Street, where Iron Torture was. He blew that whole thing out, he went under, and it sat there for years, and most of that is still not being used. That's the issue I see here, without the ability to ensure, what is going to ensure that if Mr. Petrosi sells it, and if he sells it, that's great. But what is the chances are that, you know, you're going to be covered, that if this road isn't taken out, if the stuff isn't maintained or just goes out? Being a condo association, this is a whole new ball game. Not unlike, as we all know, on subdivisions, we have a bond, and the bonding company is responsible. He's got to take the temple road out. He's got to do this, got to do this, got to do this. Bonding company's on the hook to the end. Here, there is nobody. That's a big issue that you got to kind of wrestle with on this particular one. I know you do take your chances a little bit. I assume he's going to do what he's supposed to on the landscape for you. But just be aware that the road will not have bonded. And you know what? Every time a new road goes in, it's nice. Never seems to leave. We all end up loving it, and you know, it's like, oh, that's not bad. So I just wanted to bring all those issues up, especially the part, like I said, about the bond and not having the clout for it, and the fact that we should have a road that's equal or better than what he's going to have in there to protect any spills or anything like that. Regarding the traffic, I could talk about traffic, but as you said before, that's not your purview, so I'm not going to speak to that. Okay?
Okay.
Thank you.
Good, thank you. Anyone else?
Cheryl Hayes Montville, 8 Brook Lane. So my property actually abuts the conservation land and where the proposed detention basin is going to go. So I will say, as we had walked through this process months ago, I was truly disappointed with the planting plan. I didn't feel it was enough, because I know what I'm going to lose back in this area if this development was approved. So about a month ago, after one of our ZBA meetings, Lou had a resident meeting, and we again aired our concerns to him. He actually took the time, he came out, he walked with my neighbor who lives at 7 Brook Lane, and we walked this whole area. We showed him what our lives are like, and basically, like, you're going to drop an atom bomb in the middle of all this, and you're going to clear it all out, and we're going to have 1 and 2 gallon plantings. So he actually had proposed what he presented tonight, and, you know, he said this will absolutely help with the screenage. Granted, maybe a white pine, and I'm not a tree specialist, you know, maybe a white pine isn't the right tree these days because of a variety of issues, but I absolutely would like to see some type of of trees going back into this area. And he really felt, you know, that he could do a good job. And he's like, yes, you have to visualize. And I'm like, and I'm going to try to visualize, but that, you know, he would keep this as wooded and natural as possible, and also for the animals that are back there as well. So I would really hope that if anything, you allow him to do that. Yes, it's selfish of me because it benefits me, and I know that. But at the end of the day, I really would like to keep that area as wooded as it can be, you know, given that the detention basin is going to go in there. So I would ask for your approval on that. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else?
Hi.
Use the microphone, please.
Liz Barrows. I live at 189 Union Street. I'm next to the Pickerel Brook, across from Vucevich's. So I am against the temporary construction road, and I just want to. I thought I heard someone say that it's only a 12-month period now. I had watched his preliminary hearing with you that was not public, in which he was trying to do the minor modification versus the amendment that required this hearing. And I thought it said 3 years, so has it changed since then?
I think at this point, the request is for 12 months,
For
but
12
it's
months.
also indicated that if additional time is required to complete the project, they would request an extension. So, as was pointed out earlier, I think the commission is aware that although it's 12 months, that in reality, it may be longer
if it
than
was-
12 months.
Okay.
And if I could just, to clarify, it was public, it was a public meeting of the Conservation Commission. It just wasn't advertised as a hearing, so.
Okay. I did concur. I was reading the regulations and that it was not a minor modification, so I do appreciate you finding that as well. So needless to say, I'm not in favor of this for many reasons. One, I have a lot of concerns about the stormwater management. You know, the EPA says that, 50%, more than 50% of our pollution in our water sources comes from stormwater and pollutants. And having a road so close to a river like this, nothing good can come of that. There's not enough. I think it was suggested that a wire fence was going to be put up. That I don't know how that would protect the water from runoff. And my other concern is that an easement, there's going to be an easement for access for the town. When you first did your order of conditions, I did not appeal to the governing body because my understanding was that statements were made that you would go in and out with the water and sewer, and then the area would be restored to its natural lands and vegetation. When I watched the last public hearing, there were statements made by Mr. Petrosi that no, it's going to put pipes down. You have to put crushed gravel or stone or something to that effect. I'm not using his exact words. And that no, that would not be conducive for laying utilities like that. So that brings many concerns to me. And as you pointed out, in this new amendment, it doesn't seem like, I haven't seen it because I was sitting on the other end, but I'd be concerned if that is no longer going to be happening at all. And what are my, since the original order of conditions has already been completed and I've gone beyond my 10-day window of time for something that I thought was being addressed is now not being addressed. I have extreme concerns about that. Let's see, and then the easement part where someone said that there's going to need to be access for town vehicles. Well, this goes back to my understanding of what was going to happen is that there could be a theoretical easement, but there wouldn't be a paved area allowing cars. I thought it was being restored to vegetative land. So whether it's my misunderstanding about what the order of conditions were, or, you know, am I to blame for that or what? But I'm extremely concerned about that too. Let's see, as Mr. Conroy had mentioned, there have been different statements to different boards regarding fill. And I wish I had gone through and typed up word for word what these statements were. I plan to do so for another board. But I don't believe it's a misunderstanding. I do believe that if we go back and look at the video, there were definite conflicting statements said. Regarding the CMG report, this whole process started early on for me, and I feel as though it's unfortunate for us, the abutters. This was new in the overall process for all of us, and excuse me, conservation being the first body that we had to speak to. We were really just newbies. We didn't know anything about processes and formal ways to address boards, and I know I had a certain expectation of how a process would go, and I was naive in my thinking of the way this process would be, taking people's words for that. And now, fast forward a year, going through countless meetings to different boards, and what I've experienced is that there is nothing simple about it, and I wish I could change things, and I wish I had the knowledge that I have now when we were meeting your board, because I think that the outcome would have been much different. I apologize, I have a cold. Specifically, the CMG report that was provided, I had no idea what any of the information provided in the report meant. I assumed that you, as the members of the board, had a better understanding than me, so I just left it at that. I stood up here and asked questions about, well, I'm concerned about asbestos and things of that nature, and I just assumed that, well, that it's fine. If you guys didn't have an issue with it, then it must be fine. And the applicant just tonight again said that that report said that there was no hazardous material found. I don't recall seeing anything in the report specifically making that statement. And then this was also brought up at the ZBA meeting, and he made statements saying, first made one statement, and then made another one that they did not, nothing exceeded any of the state levels.
Can I just, I'm sorry to interrupt you, but I just want to clarify that hazardous waste disposal and the regulation of sites with hazardous waste less asbestos is not the regulations of the Conservation Commission. That's the Mass Contingency Plan. That's Mass DEP. And I don't know all those regulations, but I do know that the Wetlands Protection Act states that if the applicant is complying with those regulations, they comply with the Massachusetts Wetlands Protection Act. Therefore, the question to the applicant was, and is, and the reports that were asked for, are you complying with the Mass Contingency Act with DEP to review a site if there's environmental concerns, to bring on an LSB, to test material if it's questionable. And my understanding is those were the answers that we got back. This commission can't say, well, you have to test for asbestos and this and that, because that's not the Wetlands Protection Act.
Okay.
Those are under different regulations. So
we
can say you have to comply with those regulations, but that's not
so if
what
we have
this board is here.
concerns, we contact a state department.
Yes, and that's what was mentioned before. Talk to DEP, talk to the health department. If there's concerns, there's contaminants on the sites, those would be the boards to go to.
Okay. So there was no interest of knowing that there were, he said that nothing exceeded a level, so you don't care that to know it wouldn't impact your decision if you were made aware of leads and whatever being tested.
Well, if it's there, then yes, it
Well, I
should
guess
be
that's
removed.
my concern, is that apparently after discussing with the applicant and the board, the chairman of the ZBA, yes, they did do tests, but he didn't provide it, and as of yet, he has not provided the tests to the board. But they were done, and we just want to know what was tested.
Does our order of conditions, the existing order of conditions, refer to that statement you just made, that the materials on the site need to be?
Well, I believe that the report that was provided by the applicant had recommendations from the company that he had take a look at the site, that an LSB would be on site and that materials would be tested if there was suspicion of contaminations, because that was complying with the law. Is that correct, applicant?
I have the report right here if you're interested, since people claim that they read this material, but simply that they really don't. So in this paragraph on page 3 of 4 of the CMG report that was dated June 19, 2017, which was presented to this commission, to the Board of Appeals, and to whoever was interested, CMG states, none of the testing CMG conducted to date indicates the historic fill material exhibits any of the characteristics of hazardous waste. Therefore, we conclude that this material is non-hazardous waste. So people have a tendency to overlook things that they don't want to see, so I think the report stands on its own.
And the recommendation of your consultant was to?
The recommendation is that when excavation begins on the site, that an LSP, we will have an LSP on site to do intermittent testing on soils in the event that something else is uncovered that might need to be addressed in a different way according to the regulations of the what is it, contingency plan or the hazardous waste regulation. So we've gone to the extent of doing the testing on the site to determine that what we're investing in and what we're purchasing and what we're proposing to develop is a viable development, not something that is a wish and a prayer. So people need to read the information that we present, because we've spent hours and dollars to produce this material. And so I think the report is pretty self-evident. So the other thing that we've have Mr. Conroy, who's had his letter or his email, he makes several claims regarding the material on the site, and that it's impervious and so on and so forth. Well, again, if you look at the report that was done by CMG, you'll find that all of the test pits that were done had after the first couple of feet of material was fine sands and gravels. So last time I checked, that it was very pervious material, and so we don't have any problems with the drainage or the stormwater management basins that we've proposed. They've been designed according to the regulations by professionals who have been doing this for a number of years. So I think that, again, we're only proposing this construction access for the benefit of the neighbors. It's costing us more money to do it. All of the things that we need to do to take precautions for the brook, the entrance, the access by people fencing and all these things, those all cost money that we're trying to extend an olive branch of some sort, and we're getting presented with things that really shouldn't really be part of the discussion. This is simple, civil, do we want to help traffic mitigation? That's all it is. If you don't, I'm happy with what we have. So you folks decide if you want to
Okay,
have a different outcome.
thank you. Anyone else in the audience? Any questions or comments?
This is one of our commission. Waste products to be removed
Hi guys,
from the buffer zone.
Mike Kofsky, 29 Burns Ave. So I live right in the middle of Burns Ave. The traffic is gonna be, no matter what he does, puts the road in or doesn't put the road in, the traffic is gonna be terrible for the next bunch of years. I'd rather not see the road go in. I'm an avid fisherman and outdoorsman. If he ruins Burns Ave, he can fix Burns Ave. If he ruins the brooks, it's forever and ever and ever. So that's just my own. I live on Burns Ave. We'll deal with the traffic. I'd rather, you can fix the road. If he has to rebuild the whole road, so be it. If he has to just repave it, so be it. I would rather not see him destroy the brooks.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Anyone else? Okay. So we'll make a motion,
Wait,
just
wait,
before we
can they-
close this.
Before you go further, can you address the area that was supposed to be the restored riverfront area, which is not on the plan now, and that has these pines and Norway maples?
One other thing,
Norway maples are not native.
Maples, not
No.
Norway.
we're not native,
Norway
Norway
spruce.
spruce.
Norway spruce.
Norway's. Just,
Hold on a second.
where's that? That order you had there.
40.
Number 4. Just for the record, our order conditions, item number 40 says, all waste products, grub stumps, / construction materials, etc., shall be removed from the site in accordance with all local, state, and federal law and regulation. All equipment, these cement trucks, plasters, masons, painters, without limitation, shall be accomplished outside the buffer and riparian zone, properly disposed of off-site. And just concludes, disposal shall be done weekly or as needed. So it is covered in there that he's got to comply with all the regulations involved. So whether all state, federal, and local regulations. And that would pertain to, and I think it's also mentioned in that report, that they would, there would be further testing of the materials if the LSP, when he's on site, when they're removing this, deems that to be appropriate. So I think it is covered in there. Okay. You want to address?
Yeah, public man's mechanism, I was gonna
Okay.
address Landis's
Go ahead.
comment. And you're right, Landis, there's about, just eyeballing, I'm gonna say maybe 20% of the berm, which kind of wraps around the corners there, is within the area that was.
You want to show us on the
Oh,
plan
sure.
up here, please?
Yeah, because it's not on this
No, you're
plan,
right, it's
so,
not, that line,
yeah,
I have the plan.
the restoration of the degraded
But
riverfront
basically,
area
I'm looking at. I'm
part of
sorry,
the whole
October.
regulation.
This area here,
Yeah.
is in fact overlaps the restoration area. My view of it is that it's you know, these plantings are not inconsistent with that. It's more particular, it has a secondary goal, obviously, for the visual issue for the neighbors. But it's native plantings, it's, you know, it's topsoil. Yes, there would be, you know, it is proposed to be elevated, have a berm fill. But all the riverfront restoration stuff talks about, you know, restoration of topsoil and native plantings. And that's what this is, so.
And keeping any of the mature trees, so when that design for those plantings were done, those were going around the mature trees that were gonna be saved? According to the Oxbow report.
Almost hurt somebody here, sorry.
That's okay. Because it looks like it was just drawn on the plan with really no regard to what is actually out there and what's gonna be planted there, but.
I don't think I don't think it was drawn specifically with, you know, knowledge of going around the trees.
Yeah, I don't think so either.
Okay.
But that could be, you know, that could happen. It's not, and I guess I would suggest if you felt that was, you know, an incompatibility, again, this is, again, balancing different interests. The most straightforward way to deal with that would be that, you know, for the portion of the proposed planting area that's, you know, that's within that area, that perhaps would be the plantings, because again, it's all native species, but without the berm. And then obviously the plantings could easily work around whatever woody vegetation is there.
Right, I, as stated in the order of conditions, I'd like to see the plan revised to reflect the Oxbow report of restoring that as a riverfront area and more natural configuration of trees and shrubs.
Right.
Because we haven't received that yet. Instead, we've received this amendment. And again, I'll just reiterate, which Alice said and I said in my report, these white pines go in, and I'm going to lots of homeowners who have them blow down, or they see them sway in the wind, and they want them taken down. So they're really not a good planting that close to residents, because they, you know, the project's done, the developer's gone, and then they need to be taken down. So.
This would be, I think, a suggestion that they be native species, but limited in height, so we don't have this issue. And I think,
Yeah,
you know,
I
the
mean, you can
white
have
pines, you know.
witch hazel and high-bush blueberry and a bunch of stuff back there that's gonna, you know, that's back there now, but.
Well, yeah, I think the goal from the
Maples
neighbors
and-
was, you know, they wanted the evergreens. But I mean, we could put in, there could be spruces and things like that that don't get, you know, you don't get the pole pines
Right.
that you're gonna have. I mean, it's gonna be, you know, many decades before that is an issue, but I hear what you're saying.
Yeah.
So,
Okay.
I mean, that's certainly, I'm sure Lou would be amenable to, you know, amendments to the species list.
Oh, yes. One other thing, just, you know, when I met with the neighbors out there, we also came to an understanding that even along this line in here, that there may be some mature trees that could stay and that we'd have to work around. So we're going to engage a professional to look at the trees, the higher, the bigger mature trees. And if they're worth saving, then we'll try to work around them with tree wells or something of those sort, but just so that we understand that what we're doing is we're trying to restore but keep what is worth keeping, if we can.
Okay.
And so
Okay.
that would help, you know, visually cutting across the whole
Right.
the whole site. When you're looking from this angle here, there are some taller trees in that area that they look okay, but they may be hollow on the inside, but you just need someone to look at them.
Okay.
And we're amenable to whatever combination of vegetation you want to throw out there, but obviously we want to create a buffer for the purposes
Right.
of what we went through all this
Okay.
process for.
Yes, you want an additional comment?
Just finish up what I was saying.
Yeah, I'll bring them up for you.
This is from-
Requested a bond.
No.
In our bylaw that we should. A bond.
This is our bylaw.
Yeah, that's-
Bylaw regulation.
Just wanted to submit this to the commission. It's just, my concern is that this is in regards to the utility pipes going next to the brook. My concern is that it is a possibility. It's not out of the realm of possibilities, rather, that pipes do break. And so I called the water and sewer, and they gave me a list of repairs that they've made to broken water mains and sewage pipes. And that was the list for going back to January 2016. I don't know how current it is because it ends at July, but as you can see, it's quite a bit. So having a break of a sewer, especially line, so close to a water source is another concern. So that's it.
Okay. Seems to me that there was, with regard to the water line in particular, that it's desirable to loop the water line so you don't have dead ends. I don't recall exactly. Was that brought up on this application for the reason to connect the water line from Union Street?
I can't say for sure that I recall, but I know that is often brought up, so.
Is that our
But
jurisdiction?
that issue's not before us tonight,
No,
right?
I'm just
Sewer and
for
water.
the purpose of those here, why we had allowed that access. Do you recall, Rob, if there was a request from the water department to loop the water line?
Yes.
That's what I thought. Often we get a request from the water department to loop the water lines so they don't have dead ends. And we have done this in a number of applications over the years. And it makes sense from the water standpoint. And since this was a temporary situation, that it was not intended to be permanent. And that is one reason for that. As long as the water line is there, it does also make some sense to install at the same time the sewer line, just for clarification. Someone will make a motion to close the hearing?
So moved.
Oh, wait a minute, before we close, do we need to, we have two issues here. I think we should, do we need to keep it open for the, I think we can decide on what we're gonna do on the water line, the temporary roadway. Do we need to keep it open for the
Plantings?
plantings?
Yeah.
I would say yes, if the commission's gonna,
All right, so,
amenable to the plantings, that we need a plan that shows the riverfront restoration area and then the planting plan that goes in there. And if the buffer plantings are gonna go in, I don't have any problem with that, but I think the type should change. And also that the revised supplementary plan should show the restoration plantings of the utility line as well on the plan.
okay, so the first issue then is allowing the temporary construction of the service road from Union Street. Someone want to make a motion for, against that?
I'll move that we do not allow this corridor for the water and sewer to become an access road for construction vehicles.
Do we have a second?
Second?
Any further discussion? All in favor of the motion?
Aye. Opposed, abstained. 6-0. That was everybody's for. Jim? You're for the?
Yes.
Oh, okay. 6-0-0. So the access road is out. Now, we need to clarify the plantings issue, so we need to continue the hearing until we get a revised plan on the plantings that show, as Landis requested, the other issues with that.
What would you like us to, on the new plan, the species, new species, restoration?
Yeah, I think, for one, on this, you need to go back to it'd be good to go back to the orders and the items that we requested to have put on the plan, be put on. Put back the restoration of the degraded wetlands that you riverfront area that you agreed to complete. And then, yeah, as far as the buffer plantings, just.
So this is the buffer zone restoration,
Mhm.
which details the plantings that we're gonna go in there and how they're
For-
gonna be planted.
For both areas. The one down below the basin as well as up by the,
Yeah, this just says
The utilities.
25-foot buffer zone, which is, I believe, is this area here. So you want something from here, essentially,
yeah.
just to add on to this supplement. Okay, yeah.
Plus a modification of your barrier area.
By the way, I forgot to mention that, we did cut the number of units down by 2, so. And that was, I listened.
Thank you.
I knew that.
Thank you. Okay, so we need to,
Makes sense.
we need to continue this. Can you do that by, our next meeting's January 10th?
Can we just submit a plan, or, we don't need to really take up the commission's time, we're just looking for a plan.
We still need to we need to keep the hearing open to get that.
Okay.
You can submit it, and if it's, get it in soon enough before the next meeting,
Right.
so Landis can look at it and make sure it's okay. This doesn't mean you'd have to come if it's satisfactory. We do need to
Okay.
keep it open for that.
Okay, fair enough.
That's-
Fair enough. Thank you. Sorry
Okay.
to take up your time with this, but I thought it was,
No, I understand.
thought it was a good idea.
All right, so someone make that a motion. Can you get this back by January 10th, our meeting?
Right. Told the family guy?
Before January 10th.
We need it in time to review it, not the day before.
Right, at least the Monday.
January 10th.
Yeah,
You need it?
by the 8th.
That means that's ski trip that you're going?
I'm going. No, I'm going.
Okay, so we make that a motion for
So
January
moved.
10th?
Second.
When did you
time?
continue it? What time?
January 10th, I don't know
At
what
what
time. I don't see anything on here.
7 o'clock.
7 o'clock,
Okay, 7 o'clock on January 10th, this hearing will be continued.
okay? We got a motion, do we get a second?
Second.
Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, abstained. January 10th, we got Burns Avenue.
guess I really didn't need to go up again.
Simply say, is anybody here in favor of this temporary action?
No?
And I wrote in your notes the other continuing,
Just a half hour ago.
Half an hour?
the other things that I can.
Yeah, well,
Or I can reference the video.
beat that up pretty good.
There's that. This goes with that.
I hear you.
I mean, once he said it was just finished,
Good.
we were trying to help these people on Burns Avenue. Nobody in Burns Avenue showed up and said, we want the end of story.
Okay,
Okay, where are we?
we got minutes from,
Oh, we do
February
have someone
25th.
waiting in the audience
Oh, we
in
do.
regards to the request for certificate of compliance for 23 Joseph Lane, so I don't know,
okay,
take that
yeah, we
on
can do that.
first.
Which one?
23 Joseph Lane.
Request for,
This
oh, Okay.
certificate of compliance.
I probably have another. Is that ready?
No. So this is a request for certificate of compliance for 23 Joseph Lane, a driveway, a house, and then the detention basin is for the subdivision called Villa Terrace is also located on the site. I went out and did an inspection, and the basin hadn't been as-built because there's no certificate of compliance for the actual subdivision either. So my only issue is that the detention basin needs to be cleared and maintained. I don't think it's been really cleared for a while, and it's obscured by vegetation. You couldn't really see where the head wall is. I'm not sure where the manhole was. The order of conditions for the house lot does state that the basin needs to be maintained, and so does the order of conditions for the subdivision, that it needs to be maintained.
What was the date of that subdivision?
It's the date of the
Or the detention or what's that plan state?
This is the final as-built,
That's the
December
as-built.
4th.
I mean,
I just wondered, is it,
it's old.
it's old?
95, 96.
Can you just state your name for the record?
Michael Federico.
Right, so this is, we were able to get, I couldn't find the actual plan in our files for the house lot, but we were able to, they were able to get this. This was 1998, where the house was built, and the detention basin would have been built earlier in that, the plan.
So this was, Joseph Lane was a subdivision?
Called Villa Terrace, yeah.
So
So it's not ready, so I mean, what I was suggesting is if the commission wanted to issue the certificate of compliance contingent upon the applicant or owner going out there and clearing along the, it's kind of like a bermed bowl of a basin, that the berm around the basin should be cleared, the head wall should be cleared, and the manhole and the riprap should be cleared.
And that's this homeowner's responsibility, is this basin?
Yes. And the homeowner's the builder.
Did you
as well.
realize you had that responsibility?
No, I didn't. I was under the impression it's a wetlands, and I'm not supposed to go in there and touch anything. I mean, that's what you told me when I put my delineation wall up. You inspected it.
Were you the developer of the
Subdivision.
Joseph Road? Yeah. Yep.
Okay, so, what are you suggesting we do here?
I'm suggesting that you could issue the certificate of compliance, but we would hold it in office until the detention basin's been cleared out, which constitutes part of being maintained, and the manhole is unearthed, wherever that is.
Okay,
The riprap and the head wall.
needs to be cleared up.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Is that all right with you?
That's okay with me, but I have a closing on Monday for the house. The house has been sold. I guess that's why this come up. Nobody had ever told me I had to get that compliance certificate or anything. And it came up last week. And the house, closing on the house on Monday. I mean, if you want to hold a certificate, I'll give you a letter or whatever, and I will take care of it. The homeowner that's buying it does not have a problem with it. Me going in afterward, I already confronted him on it.
Hey, look, when's a good time to do this? We need to wait. Well, spring is better to do it now.
Well, they could do it now.
I'd
It's just
rather
going
wait
down
till
and
like
take the,
a deeper freeze.
Yeah,
So
so,
I'm not
That'll be,
making
that'll be here,
track marks all over the place in there,
that'll be tomorrow.
so there's no mud.
and there's no mud.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
I mean, as far as if you wanna hold a certificate for the subdivision, you can. I'd just like to have the one so I can bring it to the closing.
So the subdivision is still open?
The subdivision does not have a certificate of compliance either. Neither of them does. And I know, I mean, it's stated in both order of conditions that the basin needs to be maintained. So that's when we tell people. It's up to them
Okay.
to read it and
So we-
comply, so
We still have, an
So you
open
can give a-
certificate on the,
You can give a partial certificate of compliance with the continuing condition of maintaining the basin.
oh, there's a certificate on this lot,
Yeah, on that lot,
and then there's also one in the subdivision.
yeah,
So why do we need a partial?
because you're going to be having a continuing condition to maintain the basin that goes,
That would be continuing.
But how would we be assured that this was gonna be maintained since it hasn't been maintained for the past whatever years?
well, you can hold it until he does it.
Well, is it a,
But he's selling the house, so it's, I don't,
is it a requirement of the order of conditions?
yes,
Yeah,
to maintain the basin. So
Who is gonna maintain it, does it say?
the owner of the lot.
Yeah, so that's a
So if
recorded,
the seller has to make some contingency with the buyer, then I, you know.
well,
I
when the
think that's
buyer
what needs
buys
to
it,
happen.
that obligation runs with the land. They're required to fix it. If they're not fixing it, we tell them to come here and say, you need to do this.
Right, and at the easiest way to do that is when they're selling the property. Otherwise, we can't go to each lot and inspect each basin and tell each person that they need to maintain it. But unfortunately, it does come up when a homeowner wants to sell their lot. We go out and make an inspection and notice that what should have been done for the past 10 years hasn't been done, and then we say it needs to be done. And if they need to make arrangements with a new buyer to set something aside so that they can take care of it now, then that's what needs to happen.
lawyers do this all the time.
Right.
So what do you,
So
That-
will it
I-
work?
I-
suggesting that
I
we do
suggest
here?
that the commission can issue the certificate of compliance, but it's not processed and
It's-
given
yeah.
until the basin is taken care of. And if the buyer wants to make some arrangement with the seller to pass papers without the certificate of compliance, then they can do that. That's their choice.
All right, someone want to make that a motion?
So move.
Second.
Any further discussion?
Well, just before, do you have a problem with that?
No, I don't have a problem with it as long as there's a compliance certificate here. Cause that will take care of the problem.
Right, we would just hold it and not give it to you to record at the registry of deeds until I've done an inspection,
And I'll
so.
just relay that
Right,
to
and
the
if,
lawyer.
if
Well, you
your,
could-
if your buyer calls, I'd be happy to tell them that. And that would even be better, because we would want the new owners to understand their responsibilities.
Well, could you give him a copy of the certificate of compliance? He doesn't have he can't record it, but so he has a copy
I
so that the
think-
lawyer knows that this is what's
I think
the,
you could indicate that at this meeting, on this date, that the commission voted to issue a certificate contingent upon the,
oh, okay.
And I've done that,
Cleanup of
I've
this.
done that
I think
before,
you've
so the
done-
closing can occur, but
okay.
they know that there's still this
they
outstanding
would have something
requirement.
from us that, yes, we have addressed the issue. We're just waiting for the weather to,
Yeah,
Right,
I wouldn't say improve, but improve from your standpoint, so you can do that,
Yeah.
okay?
and I don't think you have to go inside the basin, but it's just when
the
Woody.
whole outside around it.
Right, the berm area here, so there's trees growing out of the actual structure of the basin, and that compromises the basin, so that's the area that needs to
If
be
you have a
cleared.
question of what should be done,
Okay.
talk
Yeah,
to Landis.
I'd be happy to.
Yeah,
Okay?
she'll show you.
All right, we have a motion, was that seconded?
Yep.
Any further discussion? All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed, abstained, 600. Okay? Good, thank you.
But while we're on this, is that,
And we need the road, then apparently the subdivision is in the same situation without a certificate of compliance, so
Yeah, it'll be,
you need to look at that and whatever issues there were that, if anything needs to be done, so we can clear that up as well.
okay.
Because at some point, it'll come back again.
The road is, that's the only thing too, because I haven't heard anything from.
It depends what, some lawyers find these things and some
Lawyers
don't.
pick it out, yeah.
So,
is this the first house that's been sold in that subdivision?
Yeah, it has,
Oh, okay. It is the first.
the first one being.
Okay.
Well, actually, it's a family subdivision. It's all family that lives on the street, and I'm the first one moving out. I'm downsizing.
okay, all right, this is over by,
Off of
the
Coney.
exit on 95.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's the one.
Okay, yeah,
Oh.
remember that now, yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Corning.
Moving it.
It's a family subdivision that was a family subdivision.
And I know it does put a burden on the person selling, but
No, I was just curious
Find a
why
way
it
to
hadn't come up
maintain it.
before.
Hmm?
I was just,
because it wasn't sold.
yeah, that's why, I was,
Yeah, it's unusual that there
Yeah.
hasn't been a sale someplace
Yeah.
along the line.
Right, and every now and then this comes up, and
yeah,
With
like you said,
basins
some
on
lawyers
people's
catch it and
property.
a lot of them don't.
Yeah.
That's why you have title insurance.
right, and they're, right, so a lot of these things are being caught. In the past, like 2 or 3 years, they've been looked at much more closely.
Okay, anything else? We got the, we need to sign something for that?
Yeah. If you also want to issue the certificate of compliance for 7 Boulder Trail,
Is that ready?
Yep.
everything's been done. I am waiting for the final as-built, but everything is the way it should be. So again, if you want to issue it, and we would hold it
And
until we
you'll
get
hold
the
it until
as-built.
you get the as-built.
Someone make that a motion?
So moved.
Clear that off.
Second.
Further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, abstained. You got that paperwork?
Do you have 7 Boulder Trail?
Thank you.
And then we have a request for an extension for the town of Walpole General Maintenance Order of Conditions, 315683. It's to allow them to do general maintenance around town by just giving us a work order.
I'll move it.
Second.
Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, abstained. 600.
Come on.
We did the extension. Right, on the minutes for, where did I find those? Okay, minutes for October 25th. Let's see, me, Al, Betsy, and Jim were here. So want to make that a motion to approve the minutes from October 25th?
I'll move that.
Second.
Any further discussion? All in favor, aye.
Aye.
Let's see, was Al here? Al, you were
Yeah.
here.
Okay. Betsy, so 402. Okay,
All right, trade you.
and the minutes from November 8th, on the last item of paragraph on the bottom of page 1, third line up, it says, it was stated that the rooftop of the proposed house will be infiltrated. I think that should be roof runoff, I think. See that? Find that? Okay. Anybody have anything else? Anyone move those? That was, let's see, me, Al, Betsy, Roger, and Remedial. Want to move that?
I'll move it.
Okay.
Sure.
Al, second. Okay, any further discussion? All in
I think I
favor?
moved it, now seconded, but I'm not
Yeah,
sure.
Yeah.
Okay.
whatever.
It's
Um,
501, right?
So that's 501, right? Yeah, 501. Okay. The minutes, okay, we got, the budget.
Right, so the draft budget did go into Munis because it was requested by December 1st, so this
Is the same one you sent me before?
yes.
Okay. Everybody got that? Okay, someone want to make a motion to approve the budget as submitted?
Sure.
Second?
Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, obtained, 600. Okay, so that's the budget. All right, the bylaw, what do we gotta do here?
Got my folder on that, but the bylaw regulations, no, I think I have a copy of that, so here we go, yeah. No, not the regulations, the bylaw. It was noticed that there was really a typo in the section that I provided you, I think it's 7, where it says both may and shall. Under section 7, 561-7, permits, determinations, and conditions, the 1, 2, 3, 4th line down, starting the hearing, and it says shall, may issue or deny a permit for the activities requested. So we need to fix that, and it needs to go to town meeting to be fixed.
It does have to for this.
Yes, it seems like it at this point.
Which page is that on?
Page 4.
Page 4,
And where?
right, and I think what happened was,
Oh, different document here.
Oh, this one.
Yeah.
that when edits were made in 2014,
Okay.
both just got put in there and really,
Where are we?
shall should have been removed. Or may, either one.
So you're gonna take out,
Well, it says, if the commission after public hearing determines that the activity which are the subject of the application are likely to have significant or cumulative effect upon the wetlands value protected by this bylaw, the commission within 21 days of the close of the hearing shall or may, whichever you choose, issue or deny a permit for the activity requested. So, I would,
So may is correct,
I
because
would
then
think
it's
may,
if
'cause-
it issues.
no, have to make a decision, something else could happen, and shall tends to mean it has to
It makes
happen.
sense to you?
Yeah, it's fine.
Okay. All right, what's the other one? Next one? Page 6.
And the other two are totally non-substantive.
All
Right.
Okay, 4, 6, and 7. Sorry, I don't have my folder, I can't remember what it was.
You crossed out like,
Oh,
yeah.
okay, here, down by quorum, right, taking out the word section.
Okay, anybody have issue with that?
No, that's correct.
And then 7. 7. What was it? Oh, yeah, remove city council. I don't know how that got it put in there either.
It was probably
This is
for
upon-
boilerplate or something.
It was a boilerplate, so second paragraph, third line, upon request of the commission, city council / board of selectmen, so city council should be removed and city solicitor should be removed because we have town council and board of
Might leave
selectmen.
that in, they might make us a city. What happened to Framingham?
Well, it could be like Weymouth, the town that has the city form of government.
Oh.
Oh, really?
Weymouth?
Okay, so I would submit these corrections to Cindy and she'd put us on the warrant for,
We already did the Walpole Times one.
where's that?
It's on the other document.
Oh, the regulations.
Yeah.
It's on the regulations,
It's
not the
on, it's
bylaw.
on this, yeah, regulations. You said page 6. You wanted to do something with the Walpole Times.
Oh, you'll have to look for that necessarily, you're using the other paper.
Right. So regulations, they don't have to go to town meeting.
Oh,
But yes, I proposed to remove under 2.3.1 advertising fees, the Walpole Times.
so the check should be made out to what, town of Walpole?
Well, I was just saying to put in to be determined or some language that, because it changes, I wouldn't put anything specific.
You use the Hometown Weekly more than the Walpole Times.
Then maybe,
We don't,
Oh,
no.
so what do you want the check to be made out to?
Well, just the advertisement fee shall be submitted with application package.
And it's up, where they.
Yeah, it's up to the applicant to where they're gonna
So we take
advertise.
out that last sentence?
No, we,
Well, just being a local newspaper.
well, we have a deal with the Walpole Times or Gatehouse Media at this point for a flat fee of $50, so it's
Oh.
usually better for everybody. So we advertise in the Walpole Times, but the fee is made out, it used to be made out to the Walpole Times, now it's made out to Gatehouse Media. That could change, so that's why I'm just saying, we shouldn't
Oh.
specifically say who the check is being made out to.
Okay.
Yeah, the check would be made out to, well, who gives them the direction to make the check out? Would you be you?
We do, yeah.
Okay, so couldn't it just be said to be as determined by the conservation agent?
Right, well, that's why I had an advertisement fee in parentheses to be determined. No,
Well, no, the fee isn't to be determined.
right, no, the
It's-
fee isn't to be determined, so strike all of that, maybe. So an advertisement fee shall be submitted with
You wanted to bypass it.
application.
Package.
What, he just had the phrase incorrect. I mean, you know, made out under the
second
advice
line.
of
So
the conservation agent. Because you don't want him writing it to the town of Walpole, then you've got to process the check and,
Right, well, we have a separate sheet that tells people what they should do,
Oh.
but in the regulations, so the first line, an advertisement fee shall be submitted with application
Or
package.
just leave it at that?
Second line. Not
My
even-
instinct would be to write it out to the town of Walpole, but whatever. I mean, it's like, okay, but not.
Leave it.
If I were a homeowner.
Made out
Or-
of,
Well,
Maybe I
we
could-
have another sheet that gives
Okay.
more specific
Okay, all
information.
right, all right.
So why don't we just take that out?
Okay.
Take the second line out.
Second line out. There's a fee.
So
They
take
have to put
out-
it with the package.
Yeah, yeah.
That's it.
So
Just take out the whole second sentence.
Okay, as well as parentheses to be determined by Walpole Times.
Right.
That, yeah.
An advertisement fee shall be submitted with the application package.
And that's it.
That's it.
yeah, that's enough.
Okay, now, my question is, we changed the bylaw, or this is the regulation,
Yep.
that we have to have a public hearing? To do the regulations, we had a public hearing to make a revision.
If it's not substantive, let's say we don't.
That's,
Not,
I think it was,
It's a ministerial
substantial
change.
change.
yeah, and it
Okay.
was on our
Right.
agenda. It was not.
Okay, all right, as
We
long
had
as
to
we're,
advertise it.
as long as we're happy
Oh,
with
this
it,
is the
that's
public.
fine.
It's a public
But-
meeting, it's not a public hearings, and I think that's fine.
But
for
there's no
administrative
substantial
change.
change.
Yeah, it's, like I said, it's ministerial.
Yeah.
so.
Okay, we're all happy with that, okay?
Okay.
All right, anything else? The enforcement orders?
Well, I'd like you to go to page 6 of 8 of the thing where it says security.
Which are you looking
We're
at?
still on regulations?
The latest document,
The bylaw or the regulation?
Regulations.
2014.
Which one are we looking at?
Regulation or bylaw? We got,
Oh, bylaw. He's looking at bylaw.
that's the bylaw. Okay, what, page 6?
Page 6, yeah. It's titled Security. The subject came up tonight about bonds. Well, here's giving us authority to require a bond. Now, I just assumed that we required a bond for projects like this
Yeah,
to make
yeah.
sure they were completed.
Yeah,
Uh,
I was surprised to hear that.
I do it all the time. Sometimes people protest, but I've been doing it for 20 years. So, Section A, a proper bond, okay? And sometimes banks do it use a different terminology, but it means the same thing. So I just want to make sure that Lou Petrosi's project has a bond.
In any project after
All
that,
right.
Yeah,
that doesn't already have a bond from,
yeah.
like a condo, any condo project, I guess, is.
Well, no, anyone that requires some work on a basin or a stormwater system
But I
that
thought planning
that
already
we're
had a.
we're responsible for,
The
a
Burns-
replication or plantings.
Burns Avenue does not go through the planning board.
Right, so anything that goes through the planning board has a bond, so then we don't need to.
But that isn't a bond for our purposes.
It is-
That's only a
is.
bond
For the road, they
The
can only
road
impose
and
the bond for the
streets.
road.
Bond for us would be for the basin and the replications and plantings. and-
Right, and if there is a subdivision which has those items in it, I do work with the town engineer, and she does put money in for those items.
Yeah.
She does, she.
Yeah, oh yeah, absolutely. Absolutely, yes.
That's what I'm saying, that this was,
But this
the
particular
way-
project, the Burns Ave didn't.
So
That
then
was
we
the way it was-
should,
not, on a, if it goes to planning board with a bond, there is
Sure.
yeah.
money added into the bond to cover conservation issues. I hear what you're saying, or I see what you're saying, but this came up years ago, and it was decided that it should be, that any bonding from us should be included with the planning board bond.
So why
This is
do,
a separate issue.
why do condominiums, why are they exempt from that? That's what he suggested.
Because they're not considered the subdivision means the division of a tract of land into 2 or more buildable lots.
Oh.
They're not, it's not considered a buildable lot.
Ah,
See, all that land is held as one
Yeah.
parcel.
Oh.
One
And
parcel.
It's a site plan review too, and there was a whole thing about that, so.
Our problem is we have issued an order of conditions.
Yeah, we can't impose
I
another,
don't think we can go back.
no,
and
we
say,
can't
"Now you need a
retroactively,
bond."
yeah,
well,
right.
let's keep it in mind going forward, because
Yeah.
we've had plenty of condominiums.
I think we all anticipated when this started that they would go through planning board, and then all of a sudden, and I didn't realize why they didn't have to
Yeah.
go through planning board, but I find out tonight why. But I think it's too late on this.
Yeah, I don't know.
I
And
don't know
except
why that
it-
wouldn't
and
go
some
through
of you
planning
included
board.
in the amended order, but
But
Well,
for the
the amended order has to do with
Planting.
the plantings
and the removal of
and
the
the
road,
removal of the
the,
road when they finish
well, when they're not having a road. but
They're
not-
the
there is no
fixing-
road.
The fixing of the sewer
All
and
he's gotta
water.
do is withdraw that application, because there's nothing, in this amendment that isn't really covered in the original order. We're back to what we want him to do, because it's shown on that, kept it open till he revises I don't think he has to revise, come back with a major amendment to plant shrubs, because he's supposed to do it anyhow. It's a question of what type
Yeah.
of planting. So I don't think we've
Check
got,
with town council and the boss down into the hall and see what they say.
it's before zoning now, right?
So when Moose,
I would think that can zoning require a
I don't
bond?
see how they can.
They generally don't.
They
I
don't.
don't know how they can.
so when Moose Hill came before us, all those condos, that didn't go to planning?
bylaw
Correct.
did not apply, it's a 40B.
Oh, it's a 40B, okay, all right, all right,
That was an apartment complex.
okay.
Well, I've had problems with this developer not completing, so I know by experience.
Well, he has a little work to do
Yeah, but
on
wouldn't
his
it,
other
wouldn't,
subdivision
if he
as
didn't
well.
comply with the conditions, would he be able to sell a condominium unit without a certificate of compliance?
Yeah, because not all lawyers pick all this
You
stuff
can-
up.
You can
You
s-
know that.
You can sell the units, you can build them and sell them,
I don't know. I don't know the answer.
with,
They often seem to get retainers, but even before they start
I
building.
mean, look at all these
Yeah.
subdivisions, how many they've sold, I don't,
The one up by
Homestead.
the one up by the church, all of those units were
East
sold
Street.
before they even built.
yeah.
At least, yeah, maybe not executed, but
Well, yeah, because I know 2 of the people that
Yeah.
are moving in there. They've bought them and they're living in a temporary place until it's
Where are these, where's this developed?
Oh,
by
east
the
over?
church.
across from Woodburgers, Walpole Woodburgers.
Oh, they've started to develop that?
Yeah,
Oh, I didn't know
Is
that.
that
Okay.
Eastover Road?
Yeah,
so that didn't go before planning? Because
not
that,
site plan review, no.
okay. Okay, so,
The only leverage we have is a certificate of compliance, which we can, if there are issues, we can find.
Well, no, I was gonna say, if they haven't complied with the order, can't we issue an enforcement order?
Yeah,
Yeah,
and then we can issue fines. I
Yeah,
mean, that's
so,
our-
I mean, we
Okay.
have that, we have that leverage.
we
Yeah.
do, and we see how much fun that is.
We need one a year anyhow,
Okay.
okay?
Speaking of enforcement order,
Okay, anything else? What do we got on here?
which is, okay, we did, so as far as enforcement order, Super Sales and Service did go before the Board of Selectmen to renew their, permit, and they were denied.
Oh, really? Is there
Yes.
I saw something on the correspondence, was that
Yes, that's what the
That's what it was
correspondence
about?
says.
Denied,
They were denied.
because of why?
Because a year ago, the Board of Selectmen gave them a punch list of things that they needed to address: the septic system, the conservation issue, the vehicles that were on site, attached to the permit, and they did not comply with the punch list. So they were denied, but they may be coming back next Tuesday for a recap.
Does that mean they have to shut down, or they can appeal it, so they can stay
They
in
can
business?
appeal it.
So they can stay
Yeah.
in business, is that, okay? Oh, set her back on, so you don't have anything to do next Tuesday,
Yeah,
tune in on the selectmen.
yeah.
Almost as exciting as our meetings.
Almost.
And I'm
All right.
still waiting for Lou
Lincoln Road.
Petrozzi to completely comply with the notice of noncompliance for Boyden Estates on Summer Street, so.
What has he done? He said he was gonna do several things. Did he
Right, so
do
when
anything?
Jack and I sent out a notice of noncompliance. Jack and I went out there and walked the site. He did put the siltation sacks in. He did some additional erosion control down the slope. But he really needed to do more permanent stabilization down the slope for overwintering. He was gonna look at the replication area, which was basically hopping the berm and going into the street. The water was coming from the wetlands, going through the replication
Right,
area and then
yeah.
down the road. So not everything has been addressed at this point.
It's tough to do anything with that replication area right now.
Right, I'm just
'Cause it
forming.
was kind of
But it suggests it's not draining.
graded the wrong direction. It was grading away from the wetland it's supposed to go back into,
Right.
and from looking at it, it appeared as though the grading was going the wrong way.
Right,
All right,
so
well,
that's ongoing.
okay, let's just keep on his case on that. And the correspondence or comments, anything here we need?
Right, so the zoning board of appeals, 825 Main Street, was for a sign, I don't really know jurisdiction. And there's a request from the planning board, 26 Baker Street, a two-lot subdivision. We had made comments about that before, that perhaps it needed a land disturbance permit.
They are working on that lot. They put a roadway in,
Mm-hmm.
or a rough, the
Rough road.
base is in.
Mm-hmm. Right, I think they downsized the amount of area that they were.
Do we need to reiterate, if there's more than 40,000 square feet disturbance, they need to file land
Sure.
disturbance? I think we should. 'Cause it looks to me like there's,
I think they were really on the borderline with the road and the house construction,
it could
and
be
it's
less than
reduced.
40,000
Yeah.
square feet there? Okay, well,
But I'll
yeah,
drive
just
by
make
too.
sure they've looked at that. I think there'd be more than 40,000 with the road and the two lots.
But it's the road is just on paper, it's more of a driveway that there were. It just looks like they're clearing one that. I'll go take a look at it.
Yeah, 'cause they've roughed,
They roughed the road.
hell, the road was roughed in, now they've got, base down.
Okay.
Nichols Pond
That's
is
it.
before us. So Nichols Pond Lane. Okay. All right,
Right, so Nichols Pond Road is before us,
Yep.
yeah, so that's what the comments to the planning board are.
anybody have anything else? Okay, are you ready to shut us down? Are you awake?
Oh, we have to move to adjourn.
Okay, someone want to make that motion?
So move.
Second.
Any further discussion, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you.